The CEO mocked a poor single dad, then found him in the only photo her father ever smiled. What could happen after a moment like this? Why would a single dad become connected to such a meaningful discovery? Hello, everyone. We hope you're having a wonderful day filled with happiness, good health, and positive energy. Please give us about 5 seconds to share a small kindness with us by subscribing to the channel and turning on notifications. Thank you for being here, supporting our channel, and joining us on this journey. Before we begin, tell us where in the world you are watching from and what time is right now. Now let us begin the story today together now. You should be careful who you laugh at, because sometimes the person you underestimate is carrying the one thing you have been searching for your entire life. Charlotte Bennett's voice echoed through the elegant charity event hall as she looked at the man standing near the entrance. "You honestly expect people here to believe you belong in this room?" she asked. The man did not respond with anger. He simply adjusted the worn jacket he was wearing and looked down at the small folder in his hand. His name was Michael Hayes, a single father who had spent years building a quiet life far away from attention. The room was filled with wealthy guests, business leaders, and people who knew Charlotte as one of the most successful CEOs in the country. To them, appearances mattered. A tailored suit, a famous name, a powerful position. Michael had none of those things. He only had his dignity. "I'm not here to impress anyone," Michael said calmly. "I am here because I was invited." Charlotte smiled slightly, believing she already understood his story. She saw a struggling man who did not belong among powerful people. She did not see the years of sacrifice behind his quiet expression. She did not know the memories he carried or the promise he had made long ago. Michael Hayes had learned that life was not measured by what people noticed. It was measured by the choices a person made when nobody was watching. After losing his wife, Michael stepped away from the career he once built and focused on raising his daughter, Emma. He gave up opportunities, comfort, and recognition because he believed being present for his child was more important than chasing success. His days became simple: morning breakfasts, school projects, small conversations before bedtime. It was not the life many people admired, but it was the life he chose with love. Meanwhile, Charlotte Bennett had built an empire by believing every decision needed to be logical, efficient, and controlled. She inherited her father Thomas Bennett's company and transformed it into one of the most successful businesses in the country. She was respected by investors and feared by competitors. But over the years, she had forgotten something important. Not every valuable thing could be measured by money. "Some people spend their whole lives trying to enter rooms like this," Charlotte said quietly. Michael looked at her. "Some people spend their whole lives trying to understand what really matters." For a brief moment, Charlotte noticed something unusual about him. He was not embarrassed. He was not trying to defend himself. He was simply calm. But before she could ask another question, a staff member approached Charlotte with an old photograph that had been discovered during preparations for the event. "Your father asked us to keep this safe," the staff member explained. Charlotte glanced at the picture without much interest. Then she stopped. Her expression changed. In the photograph was her father, Thomas Bennett, smiling in a way she had almost never seen before. And standing beside him was the man she had just judged without knowing his story, Michael Hayes. The poor single dad she thought she understood was connected to the happiest memory her father had ever kept hidden. And suddenly, Charlotte realized the person she had underestimated might be the one person who could reveal a part of her father's past she had never known. The photograph remained in Charlotte Bennett's hands long after the event had ended. The voices around her continued. The guests continued their conversations, and the lights inside the elegant hall continued shining, but she barely noticed any of it. Her attention was fixed on one question. Why was Michael Hayes standing beside her father in the only picture where he looked truly happy? "Who is this man?" Charlotte asked quietly. The staff member looked surprised. "His name is Michael Hayes. Your father kept this photograph for years. Why have I never seen it before?" The staff member did not have an answer. For the first time in a long time, Charlotte felt something she was not used to feeling: curiosity. She had spent years believing she knew everything about her father. Thomas Bennett was a successful businessman, a respected leader, and a man who rarely showed emotion in public. She remembered him as someone who was always focused on decisions, meetings, and the future of the company. But the man in the photograph was different. He was smiling naturally. He looked peaceful. He looked like someone who had forgotten the pressure of the world for a moment. And beside him was Michael Hayes, the same man Charlotte had judged only hours earlier. The next morning, Charlotte arrived at her office earlier than usual. She placed the photograph on her desk and looked at it again. "Find everything you can about Michael Hayes," she told her assistant. "Everything?" her assistant asked. Charlotte nodded. "Everything." The search revealed details she never expected. Michael was not simply a struggling father trying to survive. Years ago, he had worked in a technical field connected to one of her father's early business projects. He was talented, intelligent, and respected by the people who had worked with him. But after his wife passed away, Michael stepped away from that world to raise his daughter Emma. He chose family over recognition. He chose quiet moments over public success. Charlotte read through the information slowly. The man she thought was looking for sympathy had actually sacrificed opportunities that many people would have chased their entire lives. Meanwhile, Michael returned home that evening and helped Emma prepare dinner. She noticed the thoughtful expression on his face. "Dad, are you thinking about something?" she asked. Michael smiled, "Just remembering old times." "Good memories?" Emma asked. He looked at the small photograph on there. "Shelf, a picture from years ago." "Yes. Some memories stay with you forever." Michael never talked much about his past. He never told Emma about the people he had helped or the opportunities he left behind. He simply wanted her to grow up knowing that kindness mattered more than recognition. Across town, Charlotte sat alone in her office, still looking at the photograph. She began to understand something that bothered her. The person she had dismissed so quickly was someone her father had valued deeply. The question was no longer why Michael was in the picture. The real question was why her father had never told her about the man who created one of his happiest moments. And as Charlotte searched deeper into the past, she was about to discover a story that would change the way she saw her father, Michael, and even herself. The more Charlotte Bennett learned about Michael Hayes, the more she realized how little she had understood the man standing in front of her at the charity event. She had seen a simple jacket, an old folder, and a quiet voice. She had not seen the years of dedication, sacrifice, and kindness hidden behind them. How could I know so little about someone my father cared about? Charlotte asked herself while reading through the old records. The answer was uncomfortable. She had never tried to know him. She had only tried to judge him. The investigation into Michael's past led Charlotte to a small town outside Columbus, Ohio, where she found a place that connected him to her father. Years earlier, Thomas Bennett had visited a local manufacturing facility during a difficult period for his company. At that time, he was not the confident billionaire everyone recognized today. He was a businessman carrying pressure and uncertainty, trying to protect the future he had built. Michael, who was working as a technical specialist, noticed a problem that others had overlooked. But more importantly, he noticed the person behind the problem. Instead of treating Thomas like another powerful executive, Michael treated him like a human being. "You do not look like someone who needs advice," Michael had told him years ago. "But everyone needs someone willing to listen." Those simple words stayed with Thomas. He later told people that meeting Michael reminded him why he started his company in the first place. Not for money, not for status, for people. Charlotte found an old message from her father saved with the photograph. It was a short note written beside the picture. "The day I remembered what success really means." She read the sentence several times. For years, Charlotte believed her father's greatest achievements were the buildings, the investments, and the company name. She never imagined that one of his most valuable memories came from a person who never appeared in business headlines. Meanwhile, Michael continued living his quiet life. He repaired equipment, helped neighbors when they needed assistance, and spent evenings with Emma. One afternoon, Emma found an old box while cleaning their home. Inside were several photographs and a few handwritten notes. "Dad, who is this?" she asked, holding up a picture of Michael with Thomas Bennett. Michael looked at the photograph and smiled softly. An old friend. Emma looked curious. A famous friend? Michael laughed. No, just a good person I met a long time ago. That was how Michael always saw people. Not by their wealth, not by their position, by their character. Back in her office, Charlotte looked at the photograph again. She realized something that changed the way she viewed her father's legacy. The happiest moment in his life was not connected to power or success. It was connected to a moment of kindness between two people who had no reason to help each other, except that one person needed support and the other chose to care. For the first time, Charlotte wanted to meet Michael again. Not as a CEO speaking to someone she underestimated. Not as a business leader searching for information, but as a daughter trying to understand the man who had brought a genuine smile to her father's face. The next morning, Charlotte Bennett arrived at the small neighborhood where Michael Hayes lived. For the first time in years, she was not entering a place surrounded by investors, executives, or people trying to impress her. She was stepping into the world of someone she had judged without understanding. The streets were quiet. The houses were simple. And yet, there was a warmth she rarely felt inside the walls of her own company. Michael was outside repairing an old piece of equipment when he saw her approach. He looked surprised but remained calm. I did not expect to see you here. Charlotte took a breath. I know. I came because I owe you a conversation. Michael placed his tools down. About the photograph? Charlotte nodded. About everything. She explained what she discovered. She told him about the picture, her father, and the note she found. Michael listened quietly. He did not interrupt. He did not look proud that his importance had finally been recognized. He simply listened. Why did you never tell anyone? Charlotte asked. You helped my father during one of the most important moments of his life. Michael looked toward the small house where Emma was finishing her homework. Because I did not help him to become part of story. Charlotte looked confused. Then why? Michael smiled softly. Because someone needed help. Those words stayed with Charlotte. She was used to a world where every action had a purpose. Every meeting had an advantage. Every decision had a measurable result. But Michael reminded her that some of the most meaningful things in life happened without expecting anything in return. Later that afternoon, Michael invited Charlotte inside for coffee. The simple kitchen felt completely different from the luxury offices she knew. There were family photos on the walls, drawings from Emma, and small reminders of everyday life. Charlotte noticed one photograph of Michael and his daughter. They looked happy, peaceful, connected. You built a beautiful life, Charlotte said. Michael smiled. It is not a perfect life, but it is mine. Emma entered the room holding a school project. She looked at Charlotte with curiosity. Are you my dad's friend? She asked. Charlotte smiled. I hope I can become one. That simple moment affected Charlotte more than any business meeting she had ever attended. She realized Michael had something many successful people spent years searching for. Peace. That evening, Charlotte returned to her office and looked at the city from her window. For years, she believed success meant reaching higher than everyone else. But now she questioned that belief. Her father's happiest memory was not standing beside another powerful person. It was standing beside someone who treated him with kindness when he had nothing to offer in return. The next day, Charlotte invited Michael to meet Thomas Bennett. She wanted them to speak again after all these years. Michael hesitated. I did not want to bring up old memories that should stay in the past. Charlotte answered gently. Some memories are not meant to stay hidden. Some are meant to remind us who we really are. Michael agreed. And as the meeting approached, Charlotte felt something she had not expected. She was no longer trying to discover why her father smiled in that photograph. She was beginning to understand that the smile came from something much deeper than success. It came from a moment when someone chose kindness over judgment. The meeting between Michael Hayes and Thomas Bennett was arranged for a quiet afternoon away from the busy world of business. Charlotte Bennett wanted her father to have the chance to see someone who had been important in his life, even if that connection had remained hidden for many years. When Michael arrived, Thomas was already waiting. For a moment, neither man spoke. They simply looked at each other, remembering a time when their lives had been very different. I was not sure you would remember me, Michael said. Thomas smiled warmly. Some people are impossible to forget. The words carried years of gratitude behind them. Charlotte watched quietly from across the room. She had seen her father in countless meetings. She had seen him negotiate, lead, and make difficult decisions. But she had rarely seen him this peaceful. "You kept the photograph all these years," Michael said. Thomas nodded. "Because that day reminded me of something I almost forgot." Michael looked curious. "What was that?" Thomas smiled. "That success means nothing if you lose the ability to care about people." Charlotte felt those words deeply. She had spent much of her life learning from her father's business achievements, but she never knew that one of his greatest lessons came from a simple moment with a man who never asked for anything in return. Thomas explained what happened years ago. His company was facing a difficult period, and he had been overwhelmed by pressure and uncertainty. Many people around him saw only the problems. They talked about numbers, deadlines, and risks. But Michael noticed something else. He noticed that Thomas was carrying the weight of everything alone. "You did not treat me like a wealthy businessman," Thomas said. "You treated me like a person who needed someone to listen." Michael looked down. Everyone deserves that. Those words reminded Charlotte of the person she had been before. She had become so focused on protecting her company and proving herself that she forgot the importance of understanding others. After the conversation, Charlotte walked outside with Michael. The evening air was calm, and the city lights were beginning to appear. "I owe you an apology," she said. Michael looked at her. "You already gave one." Charlotte shook her head. "Not the kind I mean." She paused. "I judged you because of what I saw. I thought your life was small because it did not look like mine." Michael listened carefully. "And now?" she asked. "Now I know I was wrong." Michael smiled gently. "Most people learn that lesson eventually. The important thing is whether they choose to change." Charlotte looked at him with appreciation. She realized Michael never needed her approval. He had never needed a wealthy person to confirm his worth. His value existed long before anyone noticed it. Meanwhile, Thomas asked Michael if he would consider visiting the company again. Not as an employee, not as someone seeking recognition, but as someone whose perspective could help others remember what mattered. Michael hesitated. He had spent years avoiding attention. But he thought about Emma. He thought about the lesson he wanted her to learn. Sometimes doing the right thing meant stepping forward, even when you preferred to remain quiet. The next morning, Charlotte prepared for a new chapter. She knew the company needed change, but more importantly, she knew she needed change. The man she once underestimated had shown her something no business course could teach. True success was not measured by how many people knew your name. It was measured by how many people felt valued because you were there. The following weeks brought a quiet transformation inside Bennett Enterprises. The company had always been known for innovation and ambition, but now there was a new focus that many employees had never experienced before. People were beginning to ask different questions. Not only, how can we grow, but also, how can we improve? Michael Hayes entered the company building without changing who he was. He did not arrive with a desire to impress executives or prove that he belonged. He simply brought the same patience, experience, and respect that had guided him throughout his life. "You realize everyone is watching you now," Charlotte Bennett told him as they walked through the office. Michael looked surprised. "Why would they watch me?" Charlotte smiled. "Because you changed the way people think without trying to change anyone." Michael looked through the glass walls at employees working together. People usually know what needs to improve. Sometimes they just need someone willing to listen. That simple belief became the foundation of a new company initiative. Instead of only focusing on leadership from the top, Charlotte encouraged employees at every level to share their ideas and concerns. She wanted people to feel respected, not just managed. Many employees noticed the difference immediately. They had worked under pressure for years, believing that their opinions mattered only if they came from someone with a powerful title. Michael showed them another way. One afternoon, a young employee named Ethan approached him after a meeting. "Can I ask you something?" Ethan said, "Of course. How do you stay calm when everyone expects you to have the answers?" Michael smiled. "I do not always have the answers." Ethan looked surprised. "You do not?" Michael shook his head. "No, but I always try to ask the right questions." Those words reminded Ethan of something important. Wisdom was not about pretending to know everything. It was about being willing to learn. Charlotte watched these moments carefully. She realized Michael had a rare ability. He made people feel valuable. He did not create loyalty through authority. He created it through trust. Meanwhile, Thomas Bennett spent more time reflecting on the past. He admitted to Charlotte that he had spent many years chasing success without recognizing the people who helped him along the way. Your father's greatest lesson was never about business, Charlotte said. Thomas smiled. No, it was about humanity. That evening, Charlotte visited Michael and Emma. She brought Emma a book about creativity and problem-solving. Thank you, Emma said happily. Michael watched the interaction and smiled. He saw something in Charlotte that was not there before. She was no longer the CEO who looked at people based on what they owned or what they could provide. She was someone learning to appreciate the stories behind every person. You have changed, Michael said. Charlotte smiled softly. I think I am finally becoming the person my father hoped I would be. Michael nodded. That is a good thing. As the company prepared for its biggest announcement of the year, Charlotte knew she wanted Michael beside her. Not because of his history, not because of the photograph, but because he represented the values she wanted the company to carry forward. The world had once overlooked Michael Hayes because he seemed ordinary, but Charlotte had learned the truth. Some people do not shine because they stand in the spotlight. Some people shine because they quietly bring light to everyone around them. The announcement day arrived, and Bennett Enterprises prepared for a moment that would define the future of the company. Employees filled the main conference hall. Investors joined through video calls, and leaders from different departments gathered to hear Charlotte Bennett present the next chapter of the organization. But before Charlotte stepped onto the stage, she looked toward Michael Hayes standing quietly near the back of the room. Are you sure you want to stand there? Charlotte asked. You could be sitting in the front. Michael smiled. The front is not important. The message is. Those words reminded Charlotte of the man she first met. The man who never fought for attention. The man who never demanded recognition. The man who simply believed that doing the right thing was enough. When Charlotte began her presentation, she surprised everyone. Instead of focusing only on profits, growth, and achievements, she spoke about people. A company is not built only by numbers, she said. It is built by the people who show up every day and choose to care. The room became quiet. Many employees had never heard those words from a leader before. Charlotte continued by explaining the new direction of Bennett Enterprises. The company would invest more in employee development, encourage ideas from every level, and create a culture where people were valued for their contributions, not their titles. Then she introduced Michael. The audience looked curious. Many knew him only as the quiet man who had recently become involved with the company. They did not know the history behind him. They did not know the connection between him and Thomas Bennett. Years ago, someone helped my father remember what success truly meant, Charlotte said. That person never asked for recognition. He never asked for anything in return. He simply chose to help another person. Michael listened quietly as Charlotte shared the story. She did not reveal every private detail. She did not turn his kindness into a performance. She simply honored the values he represented. After the presentation, several employees approached Michael. Some thanked him for changing the company culture. Others shared how his advice had helped them see their work differently. Michael responded the same way he always did, with humility. You are the ones creating the change, he told them. I only reminded you that your voices matter. Later that evening, Charlotte and Michael walked outside the building together. The city lights reflected across the windows, and for a moment, everything felt peaceful. I used to think success meant being the person everyone noticed, Charlotte said. Michael looked at her. And now? She smiled. Now I think success means making. Sure, people are not forgotten. Michael nodded. That is a good lesson. When he returned home, Emma was waiting with a drawing she had made. It showed her father standing beside a group of people, all smiling together. What is this? Michael asked. Emma smiled. You helping people. Michael looked at the picture and felt grateful. He never expected his life to become a story others would remember. He never wanted fame or admiration. He only wanted to be a good father and a good person. But sometimes the quietest actions leave the strongest impressions. And as Bennett Enterprises moved forward, everyone finally understood something Charlotte had learned the hard way. The people we overlook today may be the ones carrying the greatest kindness, the deepest wisdom, and the most meaningful stories of all. Several months passed, and the story of Bennett Enterprises continued to change the lives of many people. The company was growing, but the most important transformation was not found in financial reports or business achievements. It was found in the way people treated each other. Employees who once felt invisible began to feel heard. Leaders who once focused only on results began to understand the importance of compassion. And at the center of this change was Michael Hayes, the man who never expected anyone to notice him. One afternoon, Charlotte Bennett visited Michael at the small workshop where he spent some of his time helping people in the community. She watched as neighbors came to him with questions, problems, and stories. Michael listened to every person with the same patience he had shown her father years ago. "You realize you are still doing the same thing," Charlotte said. Michael looked up. "What do you mean? You're helping people without expecting anything back." Michael smiled. "That is how I was raised." Charlotte looked around the workshop. It was simple, but it was filled with something she rarely saw in expensive offices. Genuine connection. "My father spent his life building a company," Charlotte said. "But I think moments like this were what made him happiest." Michael nodded. "People remember how you make them feel." Those words stayed with Charlotte. She began to understand why the photograph of her father mattered so much. It was not just a picture from the past. It was a reminder of a moment when someone with no power or status changed the life of someone who seemed to have everything. Later that year, Charlotte organized a special event at Bennett Enterprises to honor people who had made meaningful contributions without seeking recognition. She wanted employees to understand that success was not only created by executives and leaders. It was created by ordinary people making extraordinary choices every day. During the event, Charlotte placed the old photograph of Thomas Bennett and Michael Hayes in a private company gallery. The picture was displayed with a simple message: the greatest achievements begin with kindness. Many employees stopped to look at it. They learned the story behind the image and understood why it represented something bigger than business. It represented humanity. Michael attended the event with Emma. She looked at the photograph with curiosity. "Dad, everyone knows you now." Michael smiled. "They know a small part of my story." Emma tilted her head. "Is that enough?" Michael looked at the people around him. "Being understood is nice, but being kind matters more." Charlotte overheard those words and smiled. She knew Michael had taught her a lesson she would never forget. The world often notices people who speak loudly, but some of the most important people are the ones who quietly make life better for others. That evening, Charlotte and Michael stood outside the building as employees left the event. The city was peaceful, and the lights reflected across the streets. "Do you ever wish you had taken a different path?" Charlotte asked. Michael thought about the question carefully. "Sometimes people think the road with the most attention is the best road. But I think the right road is the one that leads you to the people who matter." Charlotte nodded, knowing she had finally understood the truth behind the photograph. Her father's happiest smile was never about wealth, success, or power. It was about a moment of kindness that stayed with him forever. And the man she once judged by appearances had become the person who helped her discover what truly mattered. Years after the photograph first revealed a forgotten connection, Michael Hayes continued living the same way he always had. His days were still filled with simple moments that meant the most. He helped Emma with her school projects, shared quiet dinners with her, and reminded her that kindness was something a person carried everywhere. The world around him had changed, but Michael had not. He never became someone who needed attention. He never searched for praise. He simply continued choosing what was right. "Dad, do people see you differently now?" Emma asked one evening while they sat together at home. Michael smiled. "Some people do. Does that matter?" she asked. Michael looked at the family photos on the wall. "What matters is knowing I stayed true to who I am." Those words represented everything Michael had believed throughout his life. He understood that respect was not something people demanded. It was something they earned through their actions. Meanwhile, Charlotte Bennett continued leading Bennett Enterprises with a completely different perspective. She became known not only as a successful CEO, but as a leader who valued people. She created programs to support employees, encouraged young professionals to share their ideas, and build a culture where people felt appreciated. Every decision she made carried a lesson she learned from Michael. The lesson that every person has a story worth hearing. One afternoon, Charlotte visited the company gallery and stopped in front of the old photograph. She remembered the first time she saw it. She remembered the assumptions she made. She remembered believing she understood Michael without knowing anything about him. Now, she saw the photograph differently. She no longer saw a mystery. She saw a reminder. A reminder that the most meaningful connections are not always created through success or influence. They're created through moments of kindness. Later that day, Charlotte invited Michael and Emma to the company's annual gathering. During the event, she stood in front of hundreds of employees and shared a personal reflection. For a long time, I believe success was about reaching the highest position and achieving the biggest goals, Charlotte said. But I learned that success is also about the people who help us become better versions of ourselves. She looked toward Michael. Some people enter our lives quietly. They do not ask for recognition. They do not ask to be remembered. But their kindness stays with us forever. The room became silent as everyone understood the meaning behind her words. Michael felt grateful, but he remained humble. After the event, Charlotte thanked him privately. "You changed my life without even trying," she said. Michael smiled. "You changed your life. I just reminded you to look closer." Years later, the photograph of Thomas Bennett and Michael Hayes remained in the company gallery. New employees continued asking about the story behind it. They learned about a man who helped someone without expecting anything. They learned about a daughter who discovered a truth hidden in her father's past. And they learned that a person's value is never determined by their appearance, their income, or their position. The greatest impact often comes from people who quietly choose kindness when nobody is watching. Michael Hayes was never the richest person in the room. He was never the most powerful. But he carried something far more valuable. A heart that cared, a life built on dignity, and a legacy created through simple acts of grace. And that was why one forgotten photograph became a reminder that the people we overlook today may be the ones who teach us the most important lessons tomorrow.